Welcome to Men's Leadership God's Way. I'm your host, Don Wood. This is the place where men learn to lead with faith, clarity, and conviction. Together, we'll explore real stories and biblical principles to help you be a model of integrity in your career, family, and everyday life. Let's get started. Welcome back, my friend. Today's podcast is a very special one for me. I met Dr. Gerard Cascio and his wife Brenda at a dinner meeting in Boston in what I can only describe as one of those moments that reminds you how God brings people together at exactly the right time. What began as a simple introduction quickly became a meaningful friendship that's lasted for over 10 years. I can sense when a man has a deep commitment with Jesus, and it was obvious that this is woven into his integrity with the way he loves and serves his family. Gerard is a gifted health professional and, more importantly, a man of character who loves God. He's a husband, father, grandfather, and an exceptional leader who understands that success without faithfulness is hollow. You're going to learn how his heart for the Lord guides his life and what it means to honor Christ in both your profession and your home. This interview is my gift to you, and I'm glad you're here to be blessed by it. Let's step into the conversation. So, Gerard, thank you for coming on to the podcast. I just can't believe it's been 10 years already. And
It's nice having that long distance relationship
yeah,
that has carried on.
yeah. And it's amazing how here we were just sitting at the table and we immediately hit it off. It was
Yeah.
really great. And we started talking about everything, including the Lord. In my humble but accurate opinion, is one of the most important subjects that two guys can talk about, right?
Yeah.
So, if you would, Gerard, could you please share with the audience just a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you met Brenda, how many children you have, just things like that?
Okay. Well, I'm 70 years old. My wife, Brenda, and I have been married for 47 years. And I'm from Beaumont, Texas. Went to Catholic school all my years, all 12 years. Altar boy. I've always felt like I had a relationship with the Lord. Always felt like he was very real to me.
Mhm,
I was thankful for that Catholic education that introduced me and just carried me to know the Lord
mhm,
in a special way, in a personal way.
right.
So I began my practice in 1980, and in 1980, they were very difficult times. The mortgages were 16%, prime rate was 20%. I had to borrow money at 21% with no patience whatsoever. And like I said, in the 80s was a tough time as far as being in Texas, especially. Oil went down to $8 a barrel, real estate crashed. So again, starting a practice from scratch and that during that time, I just always felt like that I really did not have that much of a concern because I felt like that the Lord is gonna, if I do what's right and obey what I'm supposed to do, that He's gonna take care of the rest.
Yeah.
Brenda and I met in college, and we used to, about once a month, we were part of a team that put on retreat programs for the university. And so we grew up in that environment, learning about each other in a personal way, but also learning about the Lord and developing a deeper relationship with Him through this retreat program.
Mm. How'd you meet Brenda?
She was my best friend's girlfriend. I guess their relationship went so far. And then after that, when they broke up, we started dating.
Mhm.
We have 3 kids, 3 daughters, and they're the best thing that's happened to me is being a daddy. And there's nothing more important to me than family
Yeah.
because I was growing up, came from a divorced parents and
Mm.
makes you value it wasn't a great family to grow up in. And that's what I yearned for when I became, when I wanted with my family.
Yeah. So here you were, you're just getting out of dental school, you wanna start a new practice, tough economic times,
Mhm.
you're newly married. Did you have children at that point, when you started your dental practice?
I had a 2-month-old.
2-month-old and now with no patience,
Yeah,
right? That was a big leap of faith for you.
I know it.
So
I
how
did.
did you get started?
I just felt like let me tell you what I've always believe, I'm just sure you've heard this saying before, that people do not care about how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mhm.
That's the I wanted to practice that was essentially reflected my personality,
Yeah,
that a cold and uncaring world, when you're like that, people pick that up. They
right.
sense that. I always believe that people will seek that out,
Mhm.
personal relationship, rather than a relationship that's you're just a number. Yeah.
So your practice grew then, I presume, just through word of mouth?
Yeah. Word of mouth. Always, like I said, I like to make it personal as possible. And, I'd call and check on patients to see how they're doing. And just treating people right is powerful.
Mhm. Now, I'm wondering, who were the mentors that really influenced you early in your life where you started you're a young guy now, you're married, you got a
Uh-huh.
child. I always say to, young parents, "What did you do with all that free time before you had children?" Right? And now you have a practice, and it's through word of mouth, through the toughest times, financially. You must have had some mentors that were giving you encouragement along the way.
Well, they were not so much dentists that were mentors. It was more people that we met at our church.
Mhm.
And there was one guy that stands out in particular named Sam Jernigan. He was quite a bit older than me. And the guy was just absolutely incredible. There was not a word or action that he performed that didn't point to God. I mean, I said, when you meet someone like that, your first response is, this guy's not for real.
Yeah, come on. Is this what the
This is just something that he is sometimes. But this guy truly walked the walk and talked the talk.
Mhm,
Again, people picked up the love that he would display in words and action. And
mhm.
he really, you always hear, what would Jesus do? Well, we would always say, Brenda, besides that, my wife and I would always say, well, what would Sam do? Not equating him to God, but this guy was a good guy.
So how often did you meet with him?
I guess about every 2 months we'd have lunch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Alright, so you have lunch with him.
Uh,
Was there ever a time where you were at an intersection where your faith was being challenged with the new practice, new family, not that many patients? Were you wrestling with your faith at that point, with the realities of what was going on around you?
Never wrestled with my faith. And people will probably say, come on now, but I just didn't ever have that.
Mhm.
Obviously, I was definitely, I was pretty much a fence straddler. And as I grew older, you realize you come into a deeper meaning and a more personal relationship with the Lord and what He expects of you.
Right.
But as far as our one early challenge my wife and I had was that when our youngest daughter was about a week old, she developed meningitis. Came home
Mm,
from the hospital and meningitis with the prognosis that is like real bad. We spoke to the doctor and they put her in the neonatologist unit.
mhm.
She had a 50% chance of not making it through the night,
Oh, boy.
70% chance of being deaf or blind. And so that was my wife and I and my mother-in-law and my mom got on our knees and we literally it was at that point that we essentially said, Lord, it is yours. Whatever way you want to have this work out. It was to that total surrender that was very personal to me and helped me in trusting the Lord in whatever happened in my life, in my business, or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you what, the way you're sharing the story right now, I almost feel like I was there with you. I mean, I can really feel it in your voice because what a leap of faith to say, Lord, this is all yours, rather than saying, well, this is what I want.
Yeah. And let me tell you what the Lord did with her. She was number 10 in her class. She graduated out of college in 3 years. She's a great writer, a great mom, and she's the smartest one in the bunch.
Mm.
So it's amazing,
Including you?
including by a long shot. If you don't believe it, ask her.
So now, how did faith then show up in your practice when you were getting patients and everything? How did faith show up where your patients saw it in you?
Well, there's some days that you've had, I'm sure, that, you're not especially excited about going into the day or this particular work. And for me, I would try to switch my mindset by going, I have the privilege. I mean, I'm going, this is a privilege to be able to make a difference, not just occupy space, being an influence on people with their health, but also with them on a personal basis.
Mm,
I'm going, how many times do people get that opportunity and have that privilege to be in that position? And it just kind of totally changes your whole attitude that you go into the day with.
yeah, that's a great point, Jerry, because attitude is everything, isn't it?
The older I get, the more I try to check my attitude. And
Yeah. I always tell people, watch your attitude because it's the first thing that people notice about you.
oh yeah,
Yeah. And
they pick it up, they sense it.
yeah.
You don't have to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I went to the gym today, right? And I walk in and someone asked me, "Well, how are you doing today?" And I said, "Grateful." I love that attitude, It's
That's powerful stuff. Very
so, were there moments in the practice where you were at a difficult crossroads of the realities of what was going on, let's say financially or strategically in your business, where I got to make this decision? And it's sometimes for some people, it's an easy decision. Other people, they wrestle with it with their faith in the realities of what's going on around them. I mean, were there moments where you were challenged ethically, financially, or relationally in the business?
yeah. I think almost every day, you and I have decisions that come up that will test what you believe in and what your ethics are. But I've always tried to go by, and this is the thing that I passed on to my kids and my grandkids, a self affirmation.
Mhm.
I want to plant it in their heart, and that is, I will obey God no matter what it costs me.
Right.
I think that's for me speaks so much, and hopefully will speak to them that will always be something that dad or granddad,
Yeah.
papa told them. So to me, a decision that comes up, and I'm telling you, I have regrets. I definitely did not make all great decisions,
Mm,
but the gauge that I had was that before making that decision, if I felt like I can go to sleep at night in peace, then I
mhm.
felt like that was the right decision, or at least the best that I could do at that time.
Yeah. Kinda reminds me what Charles Stanley always used to say, "Obey God and leave all the consequences up to him."
Yeah. No matter the cost,
Yeah.
because it's going to cost them.
Yeah.
It's going to cost, I'm sure it's cost me, it's cost my kids and grandkids in the future because that's the way the world is.
Is there a situation that comes to mind when in relationship to what it cost you?
At least me personally, obviously this is not anything derogatory to the profession, but a lot of times it can be a numbers game, a production game.
Mhm.
Every day there's things, treatment that people need or have choices. To me, I think the gauge is, what would you do for his mom or dad
Right.
or, Brenda in the chair? Obviously giving them choices, but never telling them what to do because I think you end up selling something. And I think people nowadays are oversold everywhere. It's all selling, and people just want to know that you have their best interest in mind.
Well, and you know what it is too? Authenticity these days is so rare.
Yeah,
Then when you're that way, when you're genuine, people can definitely notice it. It's a breath of fresh air for people,
it really is.
and
Yeah,
that's leadership, isn't it? I always tell people that if you have to tell people that you're the leader, you're not the leader. And
yeah,
and leadership is basically influence, right?
yeah.
How did spiritual leadership take shape in your family and in your practice?
Well, in my family, mom and dad were missionaries to El Salvador and Guatemala for decades.
Mhm.
We went there when we were kids,
Wow.
and I was fortunate enough to bring my daughters to Guatemala, and it was a neat experience.
What a great experience.
It really, it
How many kids can say that?
I know it. I know it. So I'm just really, like I said, privileged, just to very, had the opportunities to do that with the kiddos.
And the thing is too, Gerard, you'll hear people complain about this country. But you know what? Whenever I meet someone that's traveled around the world, you know, as much as there are challenges here, people always say it's a pretty good gig to live in the United States. And if it wasn't, everybody wouldn't be trying to live here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, what was it like for the kids to experience that and then come back into the United States? I mean, were they grateful that they live in the United States after they saw the conditions there? Or
Really, like I said, it came home because our family did missionary work and then they go and experience it. And they just developed a heart for people that were in need. They give their time to different causes. And I think they see that.
it
And
was just, yeah, it becomes part of their DNA.
yeah.
They don't even think about it because they were so
Mm.
influenced by
They
your
do in
leadership.
Guatemala, they don't have anything. They live on dirt floors.
Wow.
And they're some of the happiest people
Mm,
I've met in my life. When I mean, they're not worried about the stock market. They're not worried about the 401k. They're very thankful. They come up there and hug you, and they're always smiling. And their whole family lives together in this dirt floored place, but they're happy. It makes me wonder, how rich are we? Are we really the rich ones?
yeah, I've heard that very often from people that do mission trips in terms of the happiness factor with
It's
communities
incredible.
and the dichotomy that exists here.
Yeah,
You would think with everything that we have, we would be the most content. We're
unbelievable.
not, right?
Yeah.
Here's a good question for you. This is for a lot of the guys here, a lot of the fellows that listen to this podcast. What's Christian life like behind closed doors when no one's watching?
Well, you're never really invisible. You
Yeah,
know that, don't you? Someone's watching.
right.
You God's up there watching you. So, as far as again, I'm telling you, I'm not a perfect guy for sure and have regrets, but
I
you know,
thought you are.
you got to be able to sleep at night.
Right.
And it's not easy to be that leader that I guess what I'm trying to say is that humility goes a long way as
Sure
far as
does.
Christian leadership. And again, people, I think it's all about humility, especially when you just wake up in the morning, being open, have your ears open to what
Mm,
the Lord's trying to tell you. In my opinion, I believe every single day the Lord sends you tests.
right.
And I don't think He's doing it to be difficult. Some of these tests are self imposed, but a lot of them come from the Lord
Mhm.
because I believe that He loves us so much, He won't let us be stagnant.
Right.
I think that He wants us to grow and stretch our faith. And also, and I'm sure you've heard this before, true growth starts at the end of your comfort zone.
That's right, because in growth isn't gonna happen in the absence of challenges.
Exactly. They
Yeah,
doesn't come in good times.
right.
It comes in difficult circumstances.
What do they say? When things are going well, we tend to party, and when things get difficult, we tend to ponder.
Yeah. Good. Like
So
Charles Stanley, he says, when things become difficult and, just there's dire times, he says, get your ears open.
right.
The Lord's trying to get your attention.
Mm.
Stop speaking so much and start listening.
That's a great point too, because I think when God initially approaches us, he wants to whisper, right? And then we don't listen. So then he has to shout at us through circumstances.
It's not good. You don't want yeah, through circumstances. You wanna be a quick learner.
Right. And it could be a test, like you were saying, about is it going to be profit or is it going to be doing the right thing?
Yeah,
If I'm at an intersection where, well, I really need this money to pay the bills this
yeah.
month in the practice, should I maybe suggest that extra procedure that they don't really need? Or do I do the right thing and just trust the Lord in terms of what's going to happen with my practice with the finances?
I've always felt like He has your best in mind, and, the Lord always He really does work things out. At least for us, we've been very blessed. Again, it's just being able to go to bed at night and sleep with that particular decision that you made.
And it sounds easy, doesn't it? But then there's the fear of failure of the practice. There's the fear of letting patients down, and then the word travels like
It's hard.
wildfire. And then,
It does. Yeah,
then next thing you know, you don't have half of your base anymore, or fear of the uncertainty of what's
yeah,
ahead. I
yeah.
mean, how do you wrestle with that?
Again, I think it's all about being transparent and honest with yourself and which means vulnerability.
Yeah. Was there a time in your practice where there was a misunderstanding
Oh, sure.
and you had to trust that the Lord was gonna work out that misunderstanding rather than you rushing to try to make everything right? I mean, can you give
Yeah.
us an example where that happened or
I mean, that can happen all the time. In dentistry, things we want something to last for 40 years.
Right,
Sometimes things last 2 years.
right,
People are hard on their teeth, and there's certain things that happen, and, you just do the best you can, and you treat them fairly. Sometimes you have to, say, "Okay, what is fair to them if I was in their shoes?" And I don't think you have many regrets when you do it like that.
right,
Doesn't mean that everything works out hunky dory, but you know that you did what you felt like you were led to do.
right. It's funny, you'll hear people say that all the time, "It's not fair." And I say, "Don't go for fair. We've been doing that since we were 2 years old."
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
how's that work out for us?
But
I
when you're on the receiving end, you wanna feel like it's fair as possible. It may not be to them, but
I remember one time I went to my dentist and I asked him, "Why is my back molar cracked?" And he said, "Well, Don, you're 53 years old, and think about it. Bridges are made with cement and steel, and they start to deteriorate after 50 years. You're made of
it
flesh and blood."
actually
S
50 years.
Do you ever feel like you're leading on the outside but running empty on the inside? Hi, I'm Don Wood, founder of Men's Leadership God's Way. I work one on one with executives and leaders who are ready to trade burnout, confusion, and isolation for clarity, confidence, and peace. My coaching is designed to help you to lead with conviction without sacrificing your health, faith, or family. If you're ready to experience the transformation you've been searching for, visit mensleadershipgodsway.com and let's start your journey today. So, having this practice and raising the family, how many years was it were you into the practice when you had all three of your daughters?
We had all the kiddos in 5 years.
Okay.
Years of practice, yeah.
And so, were there any times where there was financial hardship for you and the family?
You know, Brenda and I were raised in the '50s and '60s,
Mhm.
and our families were very basic. They're very conservative.
Mhm.
I think it's all about debt. I didn't go out after I got out of dental school and bought a vet or anything like that. I think it's just being a good stewardship as far as what you have and where you are right now. And I just, like I said, I mean, there was a month or two that was not so great when I was first starting out, but Brenda and I were both resilient. And also, like I said, just believe in the Lord that things going to work out okay.
It always does, doesn't it?
Obviously, don't take from the Lord
Yeah.
as tithing is concerned, because what you can't outgive Him.
Right.
At least I believe that.
Yeah.
I think He blesses you when you bless His kingdom.
Yeah. Sometimes I've given messages on money, and it's interesting. There are more scriptural verses in the Bible about money than there is about prayer or faith.
Yeah,
Because
that's what.
I knew that God knew that I say, "Listen, I know in my own heart, but I also know what God says is that He knows that that's where the battle was gonna take place,
Wow,
was with money, right?"
wow,
And, you know what I wish our educational systems had taught us growing up? It's just the simple principle of compound interest. Can
yeah,
you imagine if we had learned that when we were in 10th or 11th or 12th grade?
yeah,
Save your money now and how it's gonna compound, and 20 years from now, you will not be able to believe, what you have in your account.
and also teaching you about you're missing out when it's immediate gratification.
Right.
No one wants to wait. No one
Right.
wants to wait anymore.
Putting off immediate pleasures for long-term goals. That's the way I was taught.
Yeah, same here.
So here you are. You live in a beautiful place. You have a wonderful family, right?
Oh, yeah.
At a successful practice. Are you retired now or semi-retired?
I work 1 day a month. As I go back to, visit Brenda's dad, he's 91, and also babysit Madeline's kids in Beaumont. So, really, I am very much retired.
Yeah, I would consider that retired.
I would consider that retired.
So, all right. So these days, when do you feel depleted spiritually? I mean, we all run into that, don't we?
Now you're talking about at 70 years old?
Yeah, right now. I mean, I know for me, I'm 67 years old. And I was just talking about this with my wife's nephew today that this is the first year where I am really cognizant of energy expenditure during the day.
Yeah,
I've got to be really wise on how I spend my energy,
yeah,
or I simply don't have enough at the end of the day.
yeah. You
And
don't
that includes spiritual depletion.
yeah.
I run out of gas. I'm just wondering, what do you do about spiritual depletion?
I think the Lord sends us dry times
Yeah.
to turn us toward Him. Obviously, you really need to let Him recharge you every day as far as spend some time with Him.
Mm,
And this, for me personally, and it took me, like I said, many moons to realize that I truly, at this age, really need to try to walk in the Spirit. And what I mean by that is all day long, I attempt to, I ask the Holy Spirit to guide me. I
mm,
tell him, and I say, what, today I'm gonna have my ears open to you, and I'm gonna obey whatever the cost is. I don't care what it is, and I'm not telling you I'm perfect, and I don't have regrets. But when I do, when something comes across, and whether it's something I say or something I do, I feel like the Holy Spirit's there. He doesn't condemn you, but he does convict you, and I think he guides you
I
to
like
say,
that. I
you know,
like that a lot. Doesn't
get your
condemn
ears
you,
open, keep your.
but he
And a lot
convicts
of
you.
times in my thought, you're thinking about things that are wasted time, whether it be, politics or whether it be about this person did this or said this. I'm going, and I try to step back and say, isn't that a thought that's a waste of time and a waste of energy? There's to me about energy, when you're talking about energy, I'm thinking that do I want to spend my energy today, what I have for today that's been given to me I want to spend it in a special way or the way I'm supposed to,
Right.
not fretting, not worrying, or doing something that really does not make a difference. I don't want to just occupy space. At
Right.
7 years old, I want to make a difference.
Yeah. In terms of that, share with us, if you would, your prayer and your scripture reading life. How does that look?
Again, every morning, I didn't do it for a good while, but I get on my knees and say particular prayers that are honorable to God and ask Him to guide me and pray for. Again, bottom line, you got to spend time with Him in order for Him to guide you through your day.
Mm,
That's me personally, and to do otherwise is vanity. It really is. It just is. It's not a day. Our days become more precious when you're 70. I'm in the fourth quarter, maybe in a 2 minute warning. I do want to tell you one thing. I think I told you this in times past, but I had to, at one point, had to face my mortality when I was 68 years old, which is a couple of years ago. My dad had died of stroke at 68, healthy guy. I mean, worked out, danced 3 nights a week, perfect blood pressure, took a nap, never woke up. So at 68, I was worked up. I said, I better go get checked out. And they said, everything's great. I had the EKG, stress tests, echo, and he said, you're going to live to 95.
mm,
And so, anyway, bottom line, my daughter talked me into get gene tested. So I said, I feel great. I've never had any chest pains, work out a lot.
right.
And I went ahead and got gene tested, and it showed that I did have the gene that it would set me up to be predisposed to a heart attack,
Mhm.
like 200%. And so I went to the GP, and he said, asked him, what should I do? And he said, why don't you get a coronary artery scan? So I did. And They called me up and they said, "You have 4 arteries. 2 of them are 90% blocked, the other ones are 70% blocked." So I went to the cardiologist and he said, "Hey, man, I know you don't have heart disease. You know, you're gonna be fine. But if you want me to, I'll do arteriogram." So I did arteriogram, and I woke up and he said, "You need a four-way bypass." You know,
Wow.
so it was really, now I could have ignored it. I saw it on the screen. There was no denying it. And it was at that time that when you face your mortality, you really, I guess I started thinking about was, okay, if I can trust God with my salvation when I take my last breath on this earth, then I can trust him to see me through this operation. And if I go come through the operation, then he's not finished with me yet. So, when you come to that point of facing a biggie like that, that's when the rubber meets the road.
Mm.
You really want to have your ears open and listening to what God wants, see what he has planned for your life.
Yeah. I mean, what were you thinking? I mean, through the whole process from then think about this. The Lord used your daughter to give you the idea to have that
Zero
test.
chest pain, run 30 steps a day, well, about 3 times a week, work out with weights, never had no pain, chest pain. And my daughter's she's one, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I tell her all the time she saved my life.
Yeah. I mean, because you were a walking time bomb.
It was a walking time bomb.
All right. So you have the surgery. What was the recovery for you, like spiritually and mentally?
Just really depending on him. As far as spiritually, it's at that time you probably the closest to God that when you're in that situation and you depend on him, you probably never felt as close to him as you have
Mm,
in this circumstance. I guess I left it all to him, knowing he's control. I'm not in control. It's
mm,
a fallacy. It's an illusion. He's in control of the way things are
mm.
and the way things are going to be.
As you know, I had open heart surgery as well, and
Yeah.
I remember laying in that bed. It was November. It got dark early. The leaves were off the trees. My dog had died the month before, and there I was. And you know what? God had me right where He wanted me, one on one, where He could speak to my heart. And there was nowhere for me to run and nowhere for me to hide.
Yeah.
And it was the most challenging time of my life, but it was the best time of my life
I know.
because the Lord was speaking to me.
I'll tell you one, I won't make this long, but this mentor that I was telling you about, Sam Jernigan, I'll tell you what type of guy this. It's a good story. Healthiest guy, took vitamins, healthy, skinny as rail, developed spinal cancer.
Hmm.
He went through chemotherapy and it went away, but it came back about 6 months later. And we went to lunch one time. This sounds crazy, totally crazy. And he said, Gerard, he said, I actually, he says, I've awakened at night before after chemotherapy and suffering and look, I'm seeing Jesus at the foot of my bed.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, this sounds crazy, but I am thankful I got cancer because I've never been closer to the Lord as I am right now.
Mm.
That's what type of guy he was.
Wow. And you believed him.
Oh, he was totally
He
authentic.
wasn't he wasn't just making this story up.
No, he walked the walk.
Yeah.
Always had to walk the walk.
So what lessons about your experiences, like the health scare, building your practice, the challenges of running that practice? I'm sure there's even, let's face it, we even have challenges in our marriages, right? I
Oh,
always
yeah.
say to people, you bring two sinful people together that probably came from dysfunctional backgrounds
Mhm.
and you put them under one roof. It's going to be interesting, let's just say.
Yeah, mildly.
And so, what lessons have you learned from your own manhood of navigating all these things in your life that you would want to pass on to your children?
Well, one of the things I tried to pass on to the kids was that life is essentially a dress rehearsal for eternity. So take it in that regard, in that way, you don't treat it in a flippant way. That is, live it well. And I just, like I said, I just want to make sure I'm very deliberate in what I try to do these days.
Mhm.
And I think my girls have taken that up. The girls are just very deliberate in what they do. and the time they spend, whether it be with their families or their leisure time, they just, I think they try to make the most of where they are.
Mm. I wonder about this. Do you pray with Brenda?
Oh yeah, all the time. In fact, what we do, what's made it, we say this all the time. In fact, we did it last night. We've watched The Chosen,
Love
and
that. Love it
we
series.
watched it. We've watched a lot of them 3 times. We watched two of them last night, but we were talking about the difference that that movie has made in our life. It's just made it such much more of a personal way. In fact, every morning, my wife and I, we have a little Chosen study guide, and it goes over the episode. And they do such a good job on the devotional book that they have that they put out, and then we pray. After that devotional time. So those are things that we do that you got to pray together.
And it's made a difference in your marriage, I would imagine.
See that there's times that are easy and there's times that are hard.
Right.
Both Italian, so it can be it can be volatile.
I don't know if of course, Jimmy Carter, he did very well at Annapolis and he ended up running the Trident submarines and he'd be out to sea for like 3 months at a time.
uh,
And he would come home and he would start running his family the way he ran the Trident subs,
yeah,
much to Rosalind's consternation.
yeah,
And what she said to Jimmy is, "We need to go and see a Christian counselor." And so what this counselor said to him is, "Jimmy, 10 minutes every night, I want you to read something that's meaningful to you from scripture to Rosalind. And Rosalind, I want you to do the same thing for Jimmy. And then when you're done, I want you to both hold hands and pray." And he
wow,
said within 3 months, the marriage turned completely around
wow.
because
Sure.
instead of looking at the marriage from a flatlander view, it was 3D because now they were allowing God into the marriage.
Yeah, especially before you go to bed.
Yeah, they were looking upward rather than at each other, right? Because I know for me, my wife can give you 5 reasons or 10 reasons as to why she should say, "Okay, enough of this," right? But we both look to the Lord, and that's what makes our marriage stronger. So, what is legacy? When I use the word legacy, what does that mean to you? And how do you want to portray that in terms of what your life has looked like while you've been here before you go into the next life?
God, I'm just like I said, I keep coming back to it, but I'd like to think that legacy wise, whether it be with my kids or memory, or just as far as being an obedient servant and doing what's right no matter what it costs, what costs.
Mm,
I know I keep saying that, but just everyday living, it's that choice.
right.
Choosing righteousness. I think people see that. I also want to bring out, I think in an unbelieving world, in a world that's hungry and starving for examples, someone that their Christian faith makes a difference
Mm,
in everyday walk. I think they're yearning for it, and I think whether they show it or not, I think they not glory in it, but they like to see when our Christian faith makes an example, gives us an example during how we react in dire times.
right. It's interesting. I used to work for this Japanese karate master from Hiroshima, and I'd be up at the front of the class with him and while they were warming up, right? And I'll never forget one time I was standing there with him and he said, "You know what, Mr. Wood? I don't listen to what people say. I watch what they do."
Yeah.
That behavior is really the best gauge of knowing where someone is coming from, right?
Mm. Yes.
And I tell the guys in my men's group, remember this, everyone is watching,
Your kids are watching, your children, your patients, your employees, they're watching you.
right? Your wife is watching you, your
Right.
neighbors are watching you. And I say, there is nothing more powerful for a man for their wife to look through the hallway, down through the hallway, and they see their husband on their knees in prayer.
I know it.
Their hearts will melt over that because they can trust you. Why? Because as men, we put our trust in the Lord. Because let's be honest, if we were left to our own devices, what a disaster that would be,
Yeah.
right?
our kiddos, every night when we put them to bed, we get down on our knees on the side of the bed.
Mm.
I think that's important. Hopefully, they're carrying that on with their kiddos. And if they're not, whenever we're in town, we make sure we get on our knees with our grandkids.
That's
And
great because then when you leave, the kids will put the pressure on your
uh,
kids.
how are we doing that? Right?
That's a great strategy.
Yeah.
Gerard, what do you think today guys misunderstand the most when it comes to leadership?
Probably they don't really take into account that it's not about being the boss.
Yeah,
It's about, I think, humility is and being vulnerable and admitting your mistakes as quickly as possible and apologizing and moving on.
right.
Because sometimes you can't move on until you get around that barrier of, not admitting mistakes. If they know your heart is right, if they know that, okay, you made a mistake, you said something or you did something that wasn't right, I think they kind of can overlook things.
Yeah,
You have that humble posture.
yeah. I always say in leadership, I say this particularly to young guys, vulnerability, okay, is not only attractive
It
to
endears
your
people.
teams, but it's refreshing
It is.
because now they can feel safe. They can
Exactly.
they can trust you as a leader because now they
Walls being taken down.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think it is these days that we see so many examples of men that seem to do well publicly, but then there's a private misstep. I mean, what do you think is going on there these days with that? When we see all the challenges today with integrity and leadership.
Again, I'm old fashioned. You know, to me, when righteousness comes forth, it's just exciting to see. I think it's tough to walk the walk.
Yeah,
I'm not telling you, again, I definitely have regrets about things, what I said or what I did, but it's easy for them to put on that facade
right.
of being, maybe above people, but at the same time, it's an illusion
Mm,
because maybe they're just not, they don't feel that they've got everything under control, which is a total illusion, and they haven't. They need to realize that they need God. They're flesh and blood, and obviously they're influenced by the world, just like all of us. We have to keep our eye on the prize.
So, how can they handle responsibility and yet have that tenderness that's necessary, to be the best model for Christian leadership?
Well, it seems to me to be the best version of yourself. If you're a humble person, then you're going to probably care for people.
Yeah,
You're going to have empathy for people rather than just for yourself.
right. I always say that one thing you can do as a leader is spend just a few more moments hanging in there listening to that conversation
Boy,
without shooting out with an answer.
I tell you what, that is gold right there.
Yeah,
It's real quick, especially guys. We don't want to hear. Well, I've got a solution for that. Let me tell you the solution. And being a listener is admirable as opposed to being, always talking.
right. And that presence, right. And I always say the best model for leadership was Jesus. And, he had a ton of responsibilities, lots of misunderstandings
One,
from people, right? He was always on the move. But you know what? He was never emotionally dry and he was never emotionally absent. And it's because in my opinion, it was because he knew who he was.
yeah.
He knew his identity took precedence over performance,
Mhm.
right? And a question I have for you is who are you in terms of your identity over performance? What would you say if someone asked you that question? Who is Gerard Cascio? It's a
I guess,
great question.
I guess I'm trying to form me every day as far as trying to follow the likeness. The Lord's trying to make us into His image, and
Mhm.
that's why there's tests every day. And I guess I'm kind of at this point think the tests that are going to come in front of me that confront me this day, that it's going to I need to not be surprised by them, but anticipate them
Right.
and even embracing the challenges because I know he has our best in mind. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know if that answers who I am. I'm just, like I said, somebody that just trying to do what I'm supposed to do. That's what Brenda and I always say to each other. At this point, we just want to do and be where we're supposed to be.
Gerard, I just love the scripture that you've shared with me, that you've anchored in your own life. It's from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 10, where it says, "Don't be afraid. I'm with you. I will strengthen you. And yes, I will help you. Do you not perceive it?"
That's the line that really gets my attention. Don't you see it?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
being a dummy?
And I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That is such just a beautiful scripture
It's
to
strong.
anchor
It's
your
so
life
strong.
on, right? So, what would you want men listening today to remember when leadership feels heavy and overwhelming?
As far as it being at times that are difficult, keep your eye on the prize.
Mm,
And to me, it changes your outlook. It changes your perspective and keep your ears open.
mm,
If you're having trying times, he's trying to get your attention.
mm,
And I've always liked the idea that I've always had this visual image that, and you've read it or heard it, that every single day when you wake up in the morning, I believe God pursues you,
mm.
or just like the prodigal son, the dad. He didn't chase, he ran to his son.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a touching image that he's not going to allow you. Don't run away from him. He's pursuing you and he's not going to let you be as you are. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. And I love what you say about each and every day, because when you look at both your situation and my situation, we face death. And
We,
we look death right in the eye, but you know what? The Lord isn't finished with us yet.
you're right.
You know, when I wake up in the morning, I say, okay, I've got one more opportunity to get it right and to
Yeah.
glorify him and to spread the good news to the world.
When people tell him, I know,
Yeah. How do you want your life to ultimately point people towards God?
golly, I just have I have this big burden that it's especially about my grandkids.
Mm,
I want my grandkids to be equipped and to give them everything obviously I'm not a parent, but I just like to give them words of self-affirmations and things that I want them to know deep down in their heart and not forget them
mm,
and to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And
mhm,
I say I want it for my kids, but my grandkids, think about what type of world they're going to be facing in the latter years. And they have to be strong in their faith
mm.
and they have to be strong in their obedience. And, like I said, just want to be someone that, has the Lord's love that I can share with other people because he's poured out kindness and mercy into me. And I sure don't want to hoard it.
Well, you know, my friend, I think you are an exceptional model for that. And I'm just so grateful to have this friendship with you, Gerard. And I
It
appreciate
really
the time
needs
you
that
spent with me today.
10 years and about 2,000 miles, maybe 3,000 miles away. And I'm looking forward to you coming to Texas.
Yeah, me too. What, 2 months, right? And I'm gonna be there. I'm
Yep.
looking forward to it. But
Yeah,
but Gerard, thank you for your time today, and I'm hoping that you'll come back for, another interview on the
appreciate it.
podcast.
I
Thank you,
really
my friend.
appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with me today on Men's Leadership God's Way. I hope this episode gave you encouragement and practical tips you can use right away. And if you would, please take a quick moment to rate and review the show on Apple or Spotify. Your support helps more men discover how to lead with awareness, courage, and confidence. And if you're ready to take the next step in your leadership journey, you can learn more about my coaching services and resources at mensleadershipgodsway.com. Until next time, let God's wisdom be a guide in every decision you make in your life.
From lashes for days with the viral Liquid Lash Extensions mascara to awakening your eyes with lift and color from the Brilliant Eye Brightener, Thrive Cosmetics is the go-to when you want to amplify your everyday look. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin. And for every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Cosmetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.